Welcome to the Think Fit, Be Fit podcast, part of the Think Fit, Be Fit podcast network, where we put the power of dynamic fitness back in your hands, one mental rep at a time. Effective thinking for potent fitness. Welcome to the show.
Good morning, Lee. Thanks for coming on the Think Fit, Be Fit podcast.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Yes, it's going to be fun because, like I said, I've mentioned the topic that we have in mind for today to a few of my clients. They got excited, which gets me excited. I'm a insane on the extroverted scale. Like, I'm all the way on the high end of that. So
nice. Okay.
So I'm ready to rock and roll. So glad to have you here.
Thank you.
You're tuning in from Colorado, correct?
I am. Yes.
Yeah, zooming in.
Yeah.
So before we touch on the topic a little bit more and get your formal introduction, I'd love to know something that really connects you to Colorado. Like, what do you like about being there?
Well, I'll tell you, because I just spent the last couple of months on the East Coast with my family because my father was in the hospital, and being back there for 2 months, and I'm from the East Coast, specifically New Jersey and then Manhattan and Brooklyn. Being back here, I'm realizing that my nervous system just and I live in the mountain. I live like bordering a state forest, and my nervous system just loves the mountains, loves nature, loves being submersed into all the greenery and the animals. And I saw a moose over the past couple of days just walking through our yard.
Say no more. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I can't even tell it. Like, I can't even express to you what it does for me as far as medicine for my brain and my body.
Yes.
Yeah.
You're in the green zone. That's like,
yeah.
And just that term has a whole bucket of context for people to understand what nature does for exactly what you're saying, our body, our nervous system, and all the highways that connect the things to the physical health, So yes, I love that like idea of being in love with the land and having awe around every day. Mother Nature TV every day, favorite channel. So,
yes,
all right. So, I think that is a good segue into our topic today, which is you coaching and psychedelics. So, just tell me a little bit more about your coaching, and if you could try to, for me, like separate what stands out like between, just a coach and like what you're doing.
There's basically, there are coaches for almost everything these days. Like a coach that, let's say, specializes in dating. They'll obviously have more experience with clients, in this particular niche, and will have their sort of finger on the pulse as far as like current dating sites, and maybe have examples of like what to do on a date if someone needs that. But ultimately, any skilled coach can coach someone as far as getting clarity on what they want. And this example is like, what do I want in a partner? What might be in the way of me taking steps in finding this partner? Like, for example, certain behavioral patterns and limiting beliefs and things like that. So the most important thing is that the coachee or the client is honoring themselves and what they value. And, when we honor our core values, we tend to feel more empowered and fulfilled. A core value represents who we are right now, right here and now. And they are the principles that we that we hold to be of worth in our lives. So when we don't honor our core values, or we step on our core values, we often feel lack of like harmony and dissonance in our lives, and which could lead to making us feel anxious and depressed. So if you're a skilled coach, you can help people. You know, so it's, yes, there are niches, and my niche happens to be combining my coaching with the tool of microdosing psychedelics.
Cool. Yeah. When I don't have my core values, let's see, like, just I'm not making decisions by them week to week, day to day, I feel a lack of peace in my life. I feel a lot of tension. Yes, of course. I and people that listen to this podcast know that I have some history with depression, anxiety, grief, PTSD, and also that I have a current experience with exploring consciousness and really what is it? Finding more meaning with a life that's I'm able to thrive in, and aiming for less, measures of illness and lack of, right? So, and honestly, I apply that to everything from budgeting to the clients that I take on, to how I choose to work, be a dog mom. They, and one of the things that I'm excited about this episode and having our conversation is that the past few seasons and episodes, we've really, I've been covering several ideas around tools for self-care and things that are centered on modifying our state of awareness and being, and to have the conversations that require us to say yes, and this also truth, yes, and we can do this, yes, or we don't have to choose that,
or no. I was about to say, or no,
or no,
and set up boundaries.
Yes.
Oh.
Oh man. So, sometimes I think about tools for self-care and how to set up boundaries around what you actually engage with. I mean, that goes from apps to, your partners and your medicines and your exercise. But it really is just being less binary and providing more framework, more and ideas from disciplines. And so I'm here for that. And I feel we're right in the middle of all this, where we are changing our minds about, how to expand consciousness and how to expand our self-love and our self-care.
Right.
So, yeah.
It's become, it's always, the practices have always been around, but it's becoming more mainstream for sure.
Yeah. There's influencers that are specific to, this kind of self-development. So I think that I was listening to a podcast this morning and I was like, oh man, he's an influencer in this space. And I just thought that was kind of cool. So,
yeah. And by the way, I hear you, everything you just said. I mean, we're totally on the same page. I mean, this is I'm following everything you're saying on a daily basis, or at least I'm doing my best.
Yeah. I guess that's why Gigi wanted us to hook up, and he, shout out to him for putting this together and producing it.
Thank you, Gigi. Thank you, Gigi. Thank you. Yes.
Yeah. My goal, my dream for my podcast production is to have him in the background, either throwing hints at me, or being oh, hold on, and and he puts his thinking cap on and then gives us a different full perspective. Anyways, Gigi's got a great mind, and I'm glad to have him involved in this whole production. So shout out to him.
Cheers to Gigi for sure.
So let's start with the coaching stuff. So can you explain the difference between a coach and other types of health professionals, such as psychologists and licensed social workers?
Yes. So I do get this question quite a bit. And the best way that I have found to explain it is with an analogy.
Okay.
So it's
We love those.
Analogies. It keeps getting more and more confirmed in my head. Like analogies and metaphors are so freaking powerful to explain things. It's kind of mind-boggling as far as communication wise. So this is the how to ride a bicycle analogy.
Okay.
So if you approached a therapist, a consultant, and a coach, and ask each one, how do I learn to ride a bicycle?
Mm-hmm.
The therapist would have you approach the bicycle and would ask you like how it feels, what prior associations you might have with bicycles and stuff like that. The consultant would get on the bicycle, ride the bicycle, right? And write the instructions or like the how to operate the bicycle. And then they would just give those to you and you're on your own. A coach would say, okay, in a very pleasant way, they would say, okay, I invite you to get on the bike and I'll walk alongside you until you can do it on your own. So I said, like, in a pleasant, like to invite someone. I'm very often finding myself saying, I invite you to, do this. It's just a easy, pleasant way to, yeah. So how does that land?
I like it. I want to add a cheerleader into this one.
Ooh.
Yeah. Somebody running behind you or in front of you with the pom-poms.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Male or female cheerleader, doesn't matter.
No, no, I'm glad you said that because in coaching, at least in the program that I got certified in, it's called championing. So championing is so powerful.
Yeah, let's can we dig into that term a little bit? Like
championing?
Like an example of that.
Yeah.
You can use the bike or any other.
I mean, when someone, no matter whatever someone is dealing with, whatever they're maybe stuck with or whatever they're trying to make a change with, when they take a first step, which could be a baby step, a big step, whatever, but even if it's a baby step, to me or to someone else, okay, yeah, I do that all, that's not a problem for me. But for that person, it's like they just climbed Mount Everest. So it's so important to champion or cheerlead and celebrate. It's a celebration. So why wouldn't you want someone to celebrate things with you?
Oh man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It
reminds. So, you're aware of the work that I do with the hands-on technique, muscle activation techniques.
Very, very much so. Yes.
Sometimes I do this several times a day, probably. I'll look at my client when we're done and they're doing their movements. I'm rechecking things and I go, I'm really proud of myself. Yeah. And they turn around, they're like, me too. I'm like, yeah. So
yes, and celebrating ourselves for sure.
I'm just, because sometimes I found like at that, that closing moment of the session where I'm like, oh, range of motion looks good, feel less pain, less tightness, great. I sometimes hear people, even they have self-doubt, even in that moment. They're like, are you sure? And I'm like,
yes,
I just saw it and I'm proud of myself for unlocking that.
And when you just said that to me, when you just said, recalled that experience, and you said you said that you're proud of yourself, your face lit up, you smiled, and I'm wondering, because that's the result that we want. That's the result I want my client to feel. So I'm curious to know what you were at that moment when you were proud of yourself.
Well, it's also, I started doing that as a solution to some of the common frustrations I have with running a business and not having a boss and holding myself to standards and this podcast. Like I do a lot of tactical work, creative work, communications, and yeah, I was just thought it's a solution for me to compartmentalize things so that they are they're just better received and by me and my satisfaction, because at the end of the day, I love helping people, but I'm also here to create this great environment. So I thrive and I help people and they are able to support themselves and their families and their pets and whatever better, or their vocations, So when I say that, I feel relief. I think that's the biggest one. It was solving a frustration that I had.
Yeah. And maybe managing, well, obviously a voice has, well, not obviously, but I would say, well, you know what's coming to me is the word is the word you use is peace, relief, peace. I don't know. It's just just contributing to the peace. Every way we can find, anytime we can find management tools like the one that you just described, to me, it's just putting peace in the piggy bank.
Yeah. Oh, and yeah, peace piggy bank. I love that.
Peace piggy bank.
Yeah. Oh man. So back to the coaching.
Yes.
I know you guys are here for my life anecdotes and yeah. So what's like a common thread with the folks that you work with?
Yeah, that's the only common thread. I'm finding myself wanting to give you examples, but the most different examples, but the most common thread is someone who wants to make a change in their life. And that's what most people come to me for. They're stuck with something, they want to make a change, and hopefully they're tired of it enough that's the right timing to make that change. And I would say some common changes that people want to make or are related to limiting beliefs, feeling stuck, as I mentioned, it just accelerating one's personal growth. I have experience with assisting my clients getting off of SSRIs and anti-anxiety and anti-depression medications in conjunction with microdosing. It's it's a really amazing benefit. So it can really be anything.
Yeah. So that, I imagine that the last piece that you just mentioned, you're providing a bridge from, not being sick care that they've advanced through towards like self-reliance and confidence.
Listen, I took Adderall for a couple of years when I was going through, this was I guess 8 years ago, for a couple of years when I was going through a divorce, and also when my dog was dying. And I chose to do that because it helped me get through and helped me take the actions to just do it. And instead of freezing up and getting depressed. And it started to make my nervous. I started getting my hands, I was cracking my knuckles all the time and feeling tension in my arms and in my neck. And so I knew it wasn't serving me anymore. So yes, getting through that. Yes.
Wow. That's something I definitely would point some of my clients to, because I see so many different transitions in this work. And part of this podcast space to allow me to find good sources of information for people.
Yes.
But also so I can help people and myself reconcile life transitions. And and I feel like coaching is, it's just so, it can be so powerful because it's full of intention and full of choice. And man,
Yes.
hell yeah. Okay.
Hell yeah.
Before we meander over to like the second part of this conversation, what else about coaching should we mention before going in that direction?
Jeez. What else about coaching?
Anything about your? I mean, I feel like that you just shared a powerful piece of your experience that may have got you into where you are at now. Is there anything else that your experience speaks to that you'd like to share?
I started my coaching practice 3 years ago.
Mm.
Okay.
Okay.
When I moved to Colorado with my current partner and with Karina and we were both just ready for a change, but me specifically, I went through professionally a bunch of different things, worked with my family in a family business for a little while. I was an actor mostly for fun, but sometimes I got paid for it and I still do it for fun. I was playing professional poker for a little while, just kind of trying different things. And there was a voice in me that, and a voice and a feeling in me that just like, this is not enough for me. This is not it. Like there's something more. And so we moved here just a few months before the pandemic, and it just opened up a lot of time for me to think and ponder and wander around the forest here. And I always had this idea in the back of my head that I thought I would be a good coach. And so I followed my curiosity with that. And I also started microdosing just on my own at the same time. And so I feel like the microdosing opened the pathways or just made it easier for me to follow my curiosity instead of letting my inner critic come in and say, no, you should get, get a job, see what's going on in Boulder, get a 9-to-5 job, get yourself stable, blah, blah, blah. And I didn't do that. And now I'm actually getting goosebumps as I'm saying this. This is what I was looking for. This is what I was looking for. I'm helping people, like really helping people, like with like walking towards peace in their lives and less suffering. And at the same time, selfishly, I love it. I love it. I absolutely love it. So it's so good for my brain. It's so fulfilling. So yeah.
Yeah, man, what a time to be alive. That's awesome.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
What if I told you the biggest thing standing in the way of peak performance is potentially something as simple as changing how you breathe? We at Think Fit Be Fit rely on science for new ways to optimize performance. That's why we've partnered with NeuroPeak Pro and their new product, the Intel Belt. NeuroPeak has developed the next generation of wearable tech. This belt is a real-time training device designed to teach users how to breathe properly in order to strengthen their resilience to stress, recover quickly, and effectively execute the task in front of them. If you're ready to begin unleashing the true power of breath, download the free NeuroPeak Pro app to experience their precision breath training, or dive deeper into the science of breath training by visiting thinkfitbefitpodcast.com/NPP. Your best training is a breath away.
Yeah, let's get into the microdosing piece of this. Yeah, I've dabbled in it a bunch myself, and have made some mistakes. I've also had incredible experiences, and I specifically, I love the creativity of creating content and podcasting and sharing my thoughts and conversations. So I'll use it to become to work more creatively, to open up my funnel, really, to get the thoughts on paper. One of the things I realized is that I have done I've done the work. Like I have incredible connected experiences every day. And that, the microdosing, it's not something I absolutely need at all, but I just feel incredible freedom and liberty in being able to explore, and
Mhm.
did you read Carl Hart's book, Drug Use for Adults?
I have not read it. I've not read that. No.
Do you know that name, Carl Hart?
I know the name, but I've not read it.
Well, one of my favorite
I'm
pieces
writing
of
it down
that,
right now.
yeah, it's awesome. He's got a bunch of really great interviews out there, like Joe Rogan a couple times, and some
Okay.
long format stuff where you can really hear him. But one of the things that he points out is I like true liberty,
Mhm.
true freedom of choice. We would be able to choose, which drugs that we use, just like I can go pick out which beer or cider or wine that I want.
Yes.
Of course, it would be total chaos if we just made everything legal. I understand that. And he is a neuroscientist. Yeah. Maybe. Yeah.
Maybe. Yeah.
So he is a neuroscientist. He is
Mhm.
like tenured at Columbia, and he's an open drug user.
Okay.
And his whole point is if we can choose, that's like the most important thing. So anyways, I just want to say I stand for that as well. Like I feel so privileged to be able to choose a medicine like
Yes.
this. And not and anyways, so
And just to add to that, it's
yeah.
just such a powerful medicine and such a gentle medicine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, gentle. Yes.
It is.
I remember the first time no, maybe the second time, I said to myself, wow, like I could see how this could be medicine for someone that I mean, I've had depression, I've had anxiety and clinical depression. I could see how this could work. I could feel it. And that helped me grow more empathy.
Mhm.
And just for that little thought,
Yes.
that I think is actually a big thought, but
Yes.
a small moment in time.
Yeah.
So
I hear you. I hear you.
yeah.
Yes.
So what's the 411 here? How do you get it into your coaching? Like, are people interested in it? Are people scared of it? Are they running towards it too fast?
You know what? It depends on their experience with it. If they haven't, so normally people who do not have any experience with psychedelics are a little bit more hesitant. And there's a motto when it comes to starting and calculating your dosage, which is low and slow. So just go low dosage and just go slowly. So yes, so experience wise, if someone has experience with psychedelics, they're just like, yeah, bring it on. Just tell me what to do. I'm going to show up, and they're super excited. So yeah, and then there are just some people in the middle where, I mean, everyone needs everyone needs either to do their own research or guidance on on a protocol and what's happening and the best way, how to get the most out of it and stuff like that.
It's like becoming more familiar. That's, I think, one thing. But the other thing is when people are scared of a substance, of a medicine, any medicine, like I have a long list of medicines that I'm scared of. And, we want to think about like the risk benefit analysis.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how do you what are some of the risk benefit analysis that you would kind of point towards for a potential client journey?
Well, there's the journey, which is a macrodose, and then there's microdosing, which is a microdose is nothing like a journey at all. At all.
Yeah, agree. Yeah, I
know
can
that.
yeah, yes, absolutely.
So which one? I mean, my specialty, although I've done, I have experience with macrodosing, my specialty is microdosing. So which the only risks, and these are mostly risks for macrodosing. So these are even less than for microdosing, or even non-existent to microdosing, are if you suffer from, let's say, a family history of psychosis, paranoia, oddly enough, and I'm not exactly totally sure why this is, but men specifically with color blindness,
Oh, interesting.
and also people suffering from tinnitus. Other than that, if your dosage is, when you're figuring out your dosage and calibrating your dosage, is if your dosage is, your microdose is like, so basically what we want to do is come up with a window. You get yourself familiarized with how it affects you.
Mm-hmm.
And it affects everyone differently.
Oh, yeah. Like it's
Everyone
chemistry.
differently.
Yep.
So if you go outside of your window a little bit too high of a dosage, it can make you feel a little bit anxious.
Yeah, I've experienced that. Yeah.
Also, it can make you feel kind of like tired, where you just want to get into bed.
The yawnies, get lots of yawns.
Tired. Yeah. Other than that, those are the two. And then, within a few hours, it's over.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
But macrodosing, everything that I just mentioned, it could put someone into psychosis if it runs in their family. So that's obviously very serious.
Do you have, back to the microdosing, do people pursue like a hike or like physical experiences with the microdose, or is it more introspective and journaling?
There are, so the physical, so there's a microdose can fall under a few different categories. The main, so there's the microdose. There's also what's known as a vitamin dose, which is even smaller than a microdose, where it's literally subperceptual. You don't feel anything, but it's still doing its job up in the brain. With a microdose, it usually physically brings energy,
yeah,
more focus, and physically, like one of my favorite things to do when I microdose is exercise.
Yeah. Okay.
I love exercise. I love it. It like for me, I kind of have to force myself to go to the gym and do more than like 10 minutes, Yeah. Like but it just makes it so much more fun for me.
I've definitely had that experience, and I didn't ask directly because I just didn't want to make it about me. But I enjoy exercise, and like that, it like doubles down on it for me.
It does yeah,
it really does. So, and like I've definitely done like some hikes with the microdose, and that's pretty magical.
There's actually something called a microdose.
Oh, okay. There is. Oh, okay.
Yeah. I learned about it. I learned about it a couple of years ago. I'm like, really? Okay.
Oh my gosh.
Yes. But as far, but, and then, you're asking about physically, a sense of relaxation and peace in the body, if that can be translated into, physical. Yeah.
Well, I've heard people talk about this, but in your perspective, are we aiming for like a flow state, the right amount of arousal for your clients? And if so, like, what does that do for their process?
Yeah. Well, it depends. It really depends on there's so much flexibility and nuance to this. And that's why it takes a little while to become familiar with it and how it affects you for different things and what you want to use it for. So a flow state would be, who wouldn't want to be in a flow state? Someone who is in a creative process, doing some kind of sports, writing, acting. I wish I knew about microdosing when I took my first acting class, and also when I was on stage for the first time, because my heart was beating so fast and so hard, it was like getting in the way. So I wish I knew about it. So it quiets everything down. Not everything, but it quiets down the mind, so you can be more present, access your creativity. I recently had this kind of crazy experience where I mean, it's a simple experience, but I was in New Jersey with my folks, and they live in an over 55 community, and they have like a pool there and pool tables and ping pong tables in the rec area. And so my wife and I started playing to kind of get out of the house for a little bit. Every night we started playing ping pong for like an hour or two. And actually Gigi was there. And I happened to be microdosing during my ping pong game. And there was a moment where and I'm not like a great ping pong player, but I was in it. And there was a moment where I was about to hit the ping pong ball, and all of a sudden it seemed as though time froze for a moment, and I could see the logo on the ping pong ball frozen. And I was like, whoa. And I was like, what? And I had to I just stopped, and I spoke to Karina and Gigi about it. So yeah, like who wouldn't want it? It was kind of a magical moment. And I know it's, it's a what, it's a what, kind of a whatever example, but that is, so yes, that is totally possible and accessible, like freezing in time or losing your sense of time, but in a safe, in a safe and kind of magical way.
Well, I've often pondered like a state of like bliss and, and also like productive, like time, not just like floating around on a river where, it's like time and material things don't matter. Just the presence matters. So it's like your one ping pong stroke gave you some practice for that, maybe.
Yeah.
So I have another question about like clients and whatnot. So I think a part of coaching would be, I know for me, with MAT and stuff, it's helping people shed limiting beliefs. How does microdosing help with shedding, limiting beliefs about, any self-improvement goal or something specific? I don't know.
For me to preface this,
I
am not a neuroscientist. I like in any way possible.
Yeah, I play one on a podcast. Yeah.
Yes. So this is I guess the basics.
Yeah.
Of my understanding from some of the research in the area of psychedelics and microdosing, based on studies from institutions such as like Johns Hopkins, Imperial College of London, MAPS, and my many hours of talking with Gigi and just other trusted sources. Okay. So
got it.
Magic mushrooms contain a psychoactive component. When I say psychoactive, I mean affecting the mind, called psilocybin. So when we ingest the psilocybin, the mushroom, the psilocybin enters the brain, and it binds to a specific serotonin receptor called the 5-HT2A serotonin receptor. When these receptors take in the psilocybin, they release glutamate, which is an excitatory neurotransmitter. All right. The glutamate then excites the neurons in the part of the brain called the default mode network. The default mode network, just kind of a note, contains the part of the brain called the amygdala, which it's talked about a lot. And that's like the fight or flight part of our brain.
Yeah. We've specifically been talking about it this season on the podcast. So
Okay. So
yeah.
So the psilocybin. So I'll get back to the default mode network in a second, but the psilocybin reduces the amount of blood flow that goes to the amygdala, so we don't get as triggered. And like these things, it's not if we're being mugged or chased by, this famous example of being chased by a saber-toothed tiger, we want that. We want that blood to rush the amygdala. But if we're in an argument with our spouse or family member, we don't want that necessarily. We don't want to lose it. So the default mode network, it's a collection of areas in the brain which each have their own specific function and need to work together like a symphony in order to operate optimally as a collective.
Mm-hmm.
And what has been found clinically is that people with anxiety and depression have a dysfunctional default mode network, which is thought to be poor connectivity between certain ranges of the front and rear portions of the brain, and too much connectivity in certain areas of the front part of the brain. The important and powerful thing that mushrooms do in the default mode network is that it reduces connectivity in certain regions in the front part of the brain while increases connectivity between certain regions in the front and the rear regions of the brain. And this is important. What I'm about to say is important for people to understand is that's why macro doses, or like tripping doses, are such a crazy and powerful experience, because all of these areas of the default mode network are getting excited at the same time. And that doesn't happen in normal life. Okay. So that doesn't happen in normal life, except the only instance would be if we are in a near death experience, where it happened to me once when I was in Costa Rica and I got swept out into the ocean and I couldn't get back. And for a moment, my body consciousness, or whatever we want to call it, rose up into the air, like 20 feet in the air. I could see my body in the water, treading water. And then it came down super quickly.
Whoa.
Those are the two. So that's the only other time. So it's just those extreme examples. So the psychedelics, a macrodose psychedelics, provides that extreme example, as so does an extreme life example. So why does this? Okay, I'm finished.
Oh,
with that.
good. Yeah,
Okay.
I loved it. I loved it. That hit. I learned some stuff in there for sure. And I've tried studying this just to dabble enough to know that I'm safe, basically. But that was really cool. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Well, thank Gigi. Thank Gigi, really, for that. Okay. So after explaining all of that, why does all of that matter? We're talking, that was mostly macrodose, what's happening. From a microdose level, I see on a daily basis my clients experiencing more awareness and peace in their lives. What it comes down to. And I'll get to limiting beliefs, is that the default mode network is the part of the brain that is generally responsible for thinking about ourselves. So thinking about ourselves, thinking about other people, and like thinking about the past and the future. And that in itself is not a problem, unless it's a problem to the point where we experience obsessing, ruminating, procrastination, limiting beliefs, losing our temper, which I talked about, like becoming self-critical, experiencing addiction, and having thoughts and behaviors that are not serving us. And usually all of these lead to us experiencing anxiety, depression, and stress. So what microdose seems to do, to one degree or another, is turn off the default mode network. And this allows us to have access to more productivity, compassion. There's a lot of, I'm about to list like many benefits right now. So compassion opens the heart, creativity, better sleep, more energy, increased emotional awareness, greater emotional connection with people, increased openness, or increased sense of belonging and gratitude, and again, this sense of peace. And two other interesting benefits that kind of surprised me are reduced PMS symptoms, which I think many people have probably heard about, but it's quite powerful, and also less stuttering. I grew up with a stutter.
Interesting. Okay.
And so when I speak, I've trained myself I kind of worked it out in my mid 30s. I'm 49 now, but I trained myself to speak kind of slowly and intentionally. If you may have noticed, but I see all of these. I see my clients benefiting from all these on a daily basis, and so limiting beliefs come from possibly a dysfunctional default mode network, or, you know, not like, there are different degrees
Couple
of it.
wires tripped. Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Of course, there's different degrees of it, right? It's not an on-off situation.
Yeah. I mean, we're all we're human, so we're not, we're perfect in a sense, but there's a lot of nuance. So the limiting beliefs. What we've found is that and I'm going to introduce a term called the saboteur. Well, it's the inner critic, but I refer to it as the saboteur. The saboteur usually is responsible for limiting beliefs. No, you can't do that. No, don't do that. You're setting yourself up for something.
Yeah.
So I'm here to protect you. So the microdosing and the psilocybin turns down the volume of the saboteur, and the inner critic is in that, under the umbrella.
Amazing. Whew. I only have time for one more question. I'm kind of sad about it. But
all right. Yeah. I mean, listen, I could. Yeah.
I know we could definitely do this all day.
Next one.
What is like another way without microdosing that people can quiet that critic and saboteur?
Meditation.
Yeah.
And 100% meditation. I don't have to, I've had a meditation practice for many years that I kind of go in and out of, but to sit down and meditate on a regular basis, it does basically the same thing. So I'm not going to speak of meditation in length because
it's
people
gotten
can
its
listen to
airtime.
other. It's that. So, so meditation, and then also noticing the saboteur. So there's two other things that I want to, noticing the saboteur, and also, and I'll leave you with this quote and I'll leave everyone with this quote about. It's a quote by Viktor Frankl, who's an Australian, who was a neurologist, psychiatrist, philosopher, writer, and Holocaust survivor. And he's famous for a quote that is, between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom.
That's a perfect way to end this. I think.
Leave it at that.
Yeah. I think that's perfect. Wow. Thank you so much. Do you have any places to point people to tell them where to find you?
Yes.
Or we can just put them in the show notes.
Let's put them in the show notes. But LeeZunissCoaching.com.
Perfect.
And and I have an Instagram and a Facebook.
All right. So it'll all be in there. Again, thank you so much.
Beautiful. Thank you, Jen, so much. I really appreciate it.
All right. I can't wait to share this. All right. Have a great day.
You too.
All right.
See
bye.
You. Bye.
Thank you so much for listening and being a part of the Think Fit, Be Fit podcast network. Don't forget to subscribe and share this podcast with your friends and family. If you're interested in further resources, check out or visit our website, thinkfitbefitpodcast.com.